In a quiet, secluded valley nestled between two towering mountains, there lay a small, peaceful monastery. Surrounded by ancient trees and flowing streams, the monastery was a sanctuary for those seeking refuge from the world's endless turmoil. The monks who resided there had devoted their lives to the teachings of Zen and Buddhist philosophy, finding solace in the simple, serene life they led. They spent their days in meditation, chanting sutras, and tending to the land. Among them was a particularly kind and generous monk, known throughout the valley for his boundless compassion. His heart was as open as the sky, and he was always ready to help those in need, whether they were fellow monks, villagers, or travelers passing through. He believed deeply in the teachings of the Buddha, which emphasized the importance of compassion, selflessness, and aiding others. 1. The weight of expectations. The monk's reputation for kindness grew far and wide, and soon, more and more people began seeking him out for assistance. They came with their troubles, large and small, expecting him to provide solutions or solace. At first, the monk was glad to help. Each time he aided someone, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment, believing that his actions were aligned with the Buddha's teachings. However, as time passed, he began to notice a change. The more he helped, the more people expected from him. What once felt like an act of compassion now felt like an obligation, a duty he could not escape. The villagers and travelers began to assume that he would always be available to assist them. And they no longer expressed gratitude for his efforts. Instead, they simply expected it. This weight of expectation began to burden the monk's heart. He found himself growing weary, his mind no longer at peace. The joy he once felt in helping others had been replaced by a sense of duty that left him exhausted and unfulfilled. The first surprising harm of helping others is the burden of expectation. When kindness becomes expected, it ceases to be a freely given gift and turns into a weight that one must bear. This expectation can lead to resentment, as the joy of giving is overshadowed by the pressure to always be available for others. 2. The erosion of boundaries. The monk's life began to revolve around the needs of others. He spent less time in meditation and personal reflection, neglecting his own spiritual practice in favor of helping those who came to him. The quiet moments he once cherished were now filled with the noise of other people's problems. As he continued to give more of himself, he noticed that his own boundaries began to erode. People would come to him at all hours, expecting him to drop whatever he was doing to assist them. He no longer had time to tend to his own needs, both spiritual and physical. The line between his own life and the lives of others blurred, and he found himself losing a sense of who he was. This loss of boundaries began to affect the monk's well-being. He became tired, both in body and mind, and his spirit felt heavy. The clarity of mind that had once been his refuge was clouded by the constant demands placed upon him. The second harm of helping others is the erosion of personal boundaries. When one constantly prioritizes the needs of others over their own, they risk losing a sense of self. Without boundaries, it becomes difficult to maintain one's own well-being, leading to physical, mental, and spiritual exhaustion. 3. The unseen motives. One day, a young villager came to the monk, asking for help with a difficult situation. The monk, as always, offered his assistance without hesitation. However, as time went on, he began to notice that the young villager was not truly seeking help but rather using the monk's generosity to avoid taking responsibility for his own actions. The monk realized that his help was enabling the young villager to continue in his unwise ways, rather than encouraging him to learn and grow. By constantly stepping in to solve the villager's problems, the monk was unintentionally preventing him from facing the consequences of his actions and learning valuable life lessons. This realization troubled the monk deeply. He had always believed that helping others was a noble act, but now he saw that his kindness could sometimes do more harm than good. It pained him to think that his efforts to help might actually be hindering someone's growth. The third harm of helping others is the potential to enable harmful behavior. When we assist others without considering the long-term consequences, we may unintentionally prevent them from learning important lessons or taking responsibility for their actions. True compassion sometimes means allowing others to face their challenges without intervention. 4. The disruption of natural balance. As the monk continued to help those around him, he noticed a shift in the dynamics of the village. People who had once been self-reliant began to rely more and more on the monk for assistance. The natural balance of the community, where everyone contributed and supported one another, was disrupted. The monk saw that his efforts were creating dependency rather than empowerment. Instead of encouraging the villagers to help themselves and each other, his constant intervention was weakening the fabric of the community. The villagers began to lose their sense of agency, waiting for the monk to solve their problems rather than taking initiative. This realization weighed heavily on the monk's heart. He had always believed that helping others was a way to strengthen the community, but now he saw that his actions were having the opposite effect. He wondered if he was truly helping or if he was merely creating a cycle of dependency. The fourth harm of helping others is the disruption of natural balance. When assistance is given too freely or too often, it can create dependency and weaken the sense of community. True help should empower others to stand on their own, rather than making them reliant on external support. 5. The misinterpretation of intentions. One evening, as the monk was preparing to retire for the night, a group of villagers approached him, accusing him of favoritism. They claimed that he was helping some people more than others and that his actions were causing division within the community. The monk was taken aback by these accusations. He had always tried to be fair and impartial, offering help to anyone who asked. But now, he realized that his actions were being misinterpreted. Some villagers saw his generosity as a sign of favoritism, while others resented him for not helping them as much as they thought they deserved. The monk felt a deep sense of sorrow. His intentions had always been pure. But he now understood that even the best intentions could be misunderstood. He realized that no matter how hard he tried to help, there would always be those who saw his actions in a negative light. The fifth harm of helping others is the misinterpretation of intentions. No matter how pure one's motives may be, others may perceive them differently. Helping others can sometimes lead to misunderstandings, resentment, or accusations of favoritism, which can cause more harm than good. 6. The loss of personal fulfillment. As the monk's life became increasingly consumed by the needs of others, he began to lose touch with the things that once brought him joy and fulfillment. His daily routines, which had once been a source of peace and contentment, now felt like chores. The time he once spent in meditation and contemplation was now filled with the concerns of others. The monk noticed that he was no longer living in the present moment. His mind was always occupied with thoughts of how to help the next person, how to solve the next problem. He had lost the sense of stillness and presence that had been the foundation of his spiritual practice. This loss of personal fulfillment left the monk feeling empty and disconnected. He realized that in his efforts to help others, he had neglected his own inner life. The peace and contentment he had once known were slipping away, replaced by a sense of duty and obligation. The sixth harm of helping others is the loss of personal fulfillment. When one's life becomes entirely focused on the needs of others, it is easy to lose touch with the things that bring joy and contentment. True service should come from a place of inner peace, not at the expense of one's own well-being. 7. The risk of burnout. The monk's endless efforts to help those around him began to take a toll on his health. He found himself growing more and more tired, both physically and mentally. His once vibrant spirit was now dulled by exhaustion, and his body began to show signs of wear and tear. Despite his fatigue, the monk continued to push himself, believing that it was his duty to help others. But as the demands on him grew, he began to feel a deep sense of burnout. His energy was depleted, and he struggled to find the strength to continue. The monk knew that he could not go on like this, but he did not know how to stop. He had always believed that helping others was the highest calling. But now he saw that it was leading him to a place of deep suffering. The seventh harm of helping others is the risk of burnout. When one continually gives without taking time to replenish their own energy, they risk becoming depleted. Burnout can lead to physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion, making it difficult to continue helping others in a meaningful way. 8. The creation of unintended consequences. One day, a young monk who had been observing the generous monk's actions approached him with a question. "Master," he asked, "I have noticed that you are always helping others, but I wonder, do you ever consider the consequences of your actions?" The question took the monk by surprise. He had always believed that helping others was inherently good, but the young monk's question made him pause and reflect. Had he truly considered the long-term consequences of his actions? Or had he been so focused on the act of helping that he failed to see the bigger picture? The generous monk began to look more closely at the outcomes of his efforts. He noticed that some of the people he had helped had become reliant on his assistance, unable to face challenges on their own. Others had used his generosity as a means to escape responsibility or to manipulate situations to their advantage. In some cases, his interventions had even caused harm, disrupting the natural flow of life or creating conflicts that might not have arisen otherwise. These unintended consequences weighed heavily on the monk's heart. He realized that while his intentions had always been pure, the results were not always as he had hoped. He had assumed that helping others was always the right thing to do, but now he saw that this was not always the case. The eighth harm of helping others is the creation of unintended consequences. When one acts without fully considering the potential outcomes, even the most well-meaning actions can lead to unforeseen and sometimes negative results. It is important to approach helping others with mindfulness and awareness of the broader impact of one's actions. 9. The strain on relationships. As the monk continued to reflect on his life, he began to notice the strain that his constant helping had placed on his relationships with his fellow monks. Some of them had grown distant, feeling neglected or overshadowed by the attention the generous monk received from the villagers. Others resented the way his efforts seemed to elevate him above the rest, even though this was never his intention. The monk had always believed that his actions were for the greater good, but now he saw that they had caused division and jealousy within the monastery. His well-meaning efforts to serve others had unintentionally created tension among his closest companions. This realization pained the monk deeply. He had always valued the bonds he shared with his fellow monks, but now he saw how his actions had strained those bonds. He understood that true compassion should strengthen relationships, not weaken them. The ninth harm of helping others is the strain it can place on relationships. When one's efforts to help others create division, jealousy, or resentment, it can harm the very connections that are essential to a harmonious life. True service should foster unity and mutual respect, not undermine it. 10. The loss of true purpose. In the quiet hours of the night, the monk sat alone in the meditation hall, reflecting on the path he had walked. He had always believed that his purpose was to help others, to be a beacon of compassion in a troubled world. But now, he questioned whether he had lost sight of his true purpose. The monk realized that in his eagerness to help others, he had strayed from the core of his spiritual practice. He had become so focused on external acts of kindness that he had neglected the inner work of cultivating his own mind and spirit. The peace and stillness that had once guided him were now distant memories, overshadowed by the constant demands of others. The monk understood that his true purpose was not just to help others, but to do so from a place of inner clarity and balance. Without tending to his own spiritual well-being, his actions, no matter how well-intentioned, could not bring true benefit to others. He saw that helping others must come from a place of wholeness, not self-sacrifice. The 10th harm of helping others is the loss of true purpose. When one becomes too focused on external acts of kindness, they may lose sight of their own spiritual or personal growth. True service to others must be rooted in a strong foundation of inner clarity and balance, ensuring that one's actions are both compassionate and wise. With these realizations, the monk made a vow to return to the stillness and simplicity that had once guided his life. He knew that he could not stop helping others, but he also knew that he needed to approach it differently. He would no longer give until he was empty, nor would he allow the expectations of others to dictate his actions. The monk began to rebuild his life around the principles of balance and mindfulness. He resumed his meditation practice, spending time each day reconnecting with the stillness within. He learned to say no when needed, to preserve his own energy and well-being. And most importantly, he helped others not out of obligation, but from a place of true compassion and wisdom. Thanks for watching. Hope enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Just click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next video.